Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have just an absolutely terrifying upload to share with you out of a state that I really truthfully believe is probably the state that has some of the most powerful and strange experiences and history, and that would be New Mexico. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's upload. Shall we? So I have an amazing experience out of New Mexico, and I really honestly believe that New Mexico, there are a couple things that I believe and that I theorize about. I believe there is a 5-state East Coast hotspot, and which would be North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. That's just my own belief, and I have my own theories of why. I'm not going to get into it today. And I believe that New Mexico has something very powerful about that state that makes it that things are drawn to that region. A lot of testing and stuff were done back in the day by the U.S. government. And, they say because that it was less inhabited and stuff. And that may be it, but I think there's something that drew the government to choose their locations for testing and stuff. I think, obviously, what I believe is there was a pact that the government made with reptilians in gray, Draco in gray, and trade human experimentation guinea pigs for unlimited power. And I say unlimited because nuclear power back in 1940 and 1950 was it's still big, but 1940s and 50s, on top of whatever other kind of weaponry or technology we could gain from that pact. Now, I believe that there is a deep underground military city. Not a base. I believe that that base that's Dulce, New Mexico, I believe that is just a part of something much larger. You've got Los Alamos, you've got Teos, Archuleta Mesa, which is Dulce. But there's a reason why Taos is, if you ask somebody what they know about Taos, they might not know anything except that there's a strange buzzing that had been heard there for, a consistent period of time. What's that about? They still haven't figured it out. They've made speculation and, believe us. We know. We're the government. We'll tell you that it was this. We'll tell you that it was that. But I believe that probably 2/3 of the state of New Mexico is not, the underground part is not inhabited, but I believe that 1/3 of it, the northern part, and a section of Colorado going up right through. And I believe that there's just it's either a large city or there's a large buried spacecraft, probably larger than our largest cities that are in the United States today. LA, New York, Chicago, St. Louis. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the experience that I'm going to share with you today is frightening in two ways. One, it coincides with another experience out of that area. And two, that it really does, to me, back a lot of things that I've been thinking about that state. And it is a beautiful state. There's a few places that I want to go to in this country, and New Mexico is one. I'd like to tour the whole state. Actually, the majority of the West is, people talk about the land between the lakes. Whatever. To me, it's overplayed. I live in the Adirondacks. We have our own legends and lore here. People have been massacred up here. We've got our own 411. We've got many of them, actually. But to me, seeing Archuleta, if you said, hey, Jeff, you can spend 2 weeks free paid trip to Land Between the Lakes. You got, this, food, everything, and you can explore. You don't have to worry about a thing. Or we'll give you 5 days. So 2 weeks to 5 days at the Archuleta Mesa, and you've got to pay for your food, stay, and everything else. But we'll fly you out there. I would take Archuleta Mesa. I would take Dulce in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Just because something is so eerie about that place. There's been sightings of black-eyed children on top of everything else that is known to happen there. So the experience that I'm going to share with you now is, it really does mesh up with another experience out of New Mexico, and that being Robert and his son JR, Robert Jr., at Gila National Park and Forest. So let's get into it. Also, I got some crazy news that I want to share with you about something that happened in my hometown today. All right, so really quick, my hometown. I live in the foothills of the Adirondacks in upstate New York, the real upstate New York. Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, Rome, whatever. That's Western New York. And it does have it's got its own little section of the Adirondacks, which to me and to any person from the true North Country, which would be anything north of Albany, actually north of Saratoga Springs, is in the majority of our eyes the North Country. That's all Western, So I live in a pretty cool area. We've got beautiful mountains. We've got beautiful lakes. It's just a very interesting and great place to live. That Will Smith and Jaden Smith, they did their research, and we have an aquifer in my town that has some of the freshest water in the world. and they have their water company uses some of that water from that aquifer. It's just very interesting, you know. It was actually, Glens Falls, New York was named Hometown USA at one point in the 50s. So my hometown is South Glens Falls, New York. And it is a very small town. Population 4,000. Actually, it's about 3,800. So today, this is some heat shit. Today, a truck, full-size Chevy truck, drives through the town, hits a kind of mom and pop's breakfast. It's not open for dinner. It's like breakfast, lunch. And there's an apartment above it. Ironically enough, that apartment above it is where my ex-wife and I brought my second daughter home the day she came home from the hospital. We lived there. This truck plows into that building. 3 guys get out and start opening up on this building. Thank God no one was in the building at the time. And literally just flee. Major shootout in my hometown. They took one guy down, like right down the road from my parents' house. They, plop. And the other two, the other two were apprehended. But they literally brought out everything and anything. The county, so Saratoga County is where I live, or where my hometown is. I live in the northern part of Warren County, which is just above Saratoga County. And Warren County sheriffs have this freaking SWAT truck it's got like a satellite dish on it. It's bulletproof. It is awesome. It is awesome. What's that? Walking Dead, the other show there. The girl's got one, Athea or whatever her name is. Thing's great. They had that out. And that never happens in upstate New York. I thought it was pretty crazy, and I wanted to share it with you guys because wow. And how crazy is it that I lived there at one point, And they literally opened up. They were shooting guns. They were shooting into this building. And I'm glad no one was hurt in that building. I'm glad no innocent people were hurt. There were 3 people that were hurt, but they weren't innocent. So, anyway, pretty crazy, but let's jump into the experience. All right, so I mentioned a subscriber that lives in Silver City. His son had an unbelievably crazy experience in Gila, and this gentleman that reached out to me, I did send JR and his dad an email because the gentleman that reached out to me today, Corey, wants to talk with them a little bit about what he went through. And because the similarity is there only because of the cryptids that were seen, and what else was seen as well. And I'll share all that right now. So this guy named Corey, he contacted me, and he's from Los Alamos. Now, June of 2020, he had he'd been out of work and such, like the majority of the population in the United States and the world at the time. So he was doing a lot of kind of finding himself. He's part Native American. He's about a third Native American, and he kind of lost a lot of his heritage throughout the years. But during the pandemic and the, shutdown, he decided, hey, I'm gonna start hiking. I'm gonna start enjoying nature. I'm gonna find myself. Like many people did, And so he starts hiking and going out into the Santa Fe National Forest, which is just north of Los Alamos. A beautiful, beautiful area. Super, super gorgeous, but very large, and a lot of old Native American structures and kind of monuments and such, natural monuments like the Natural Arch and such, the Puye cliff dwellings, which are unbelievably huge and beautiful, almost identical, very similar to the Gila cliff dwellings as well. Now, in June, he's heading out towards Santa Fe National Forest, and he's got himself, set of what he's gonna do on this day. It's very early in the morning. It's chilly, and even though it's June, it's got a chill to it. And he's stops and grabs a coffee and starts to head up that way. And what he sees is something that he had never seen before. He sees a couple of two military-looking trucks, kind of those convoy trucks that are, they're six-wheeled convoy with the kind of like the canvas tarp over the back, heading the same way he's going. And he's like, what in the hell? And he's thinking maybe it's, maybe they're going up to do, some cleanup. Maybe they're just, he's absolutely kind of just baffled. Why is there two military trucks that are the only use for these vehicles are to haul either soldiers or equipment or both? Why in the hell are they going up into this national forest? And he's like, huh. And he doesn't get deterred, so he's like, I'm still going. I've got this planned. I don't have, he's a single guy. He doesn't have a family. He's got no kids. He was single at the time, and he's like, well, I'll stay as far back as I can. That way, I don't draw any attention to myself, but I kind of want to see what they're doing. Now, they get into this area, and they, instead of going towards the Puye cliff dwellings, they head towards the Caballo Mountain and the Natural Arch toward the west a little. Instead of going northeast, they kind of go like a northwest. And he's like, okay, I'm not going that way. Maybe I'll park and kind of just take a hike that way and see what they're doing. Maybe there's some sort of monument or natural monument that is structurally unsound, or whatever. Maybe they're there for good. And, all of this things are going through his head. He's not thinking of anything, he's actually, at this point in his life, he was very skeptical. He was very skeptical of Bigfoot. He did believe very much so in UFOs and alien. And that popped in. He's like, well, maybe I should hike in that way. Like I'm going to. Maybe there was a crash. Maybe there was an alien crash. and I can see it. He's like, maybe hopefully I don't get arrested or shot or whatever. So he ends up parking his vehicle where he normally parks, and he starts heading towards the Caballo Mountains. And he's walking, and he stops because he can hear talking, but he can hear engines running. And he's like, what in the hell? And he kind of goes off to the side. There's this kind of one road that runs through. It's like a fire road, kind of. And he gets up off into the side. There's a lot of clear-cut trees in that region, and trees that have fallen due to natural occurrences as well. And he kind of props down behind a tree because he can hear this engine getting louder. And it's one of those trucks coming back. Now when he parked, he had been about 45 minutes to an hour's difference by the time he got to this location. So for whatever they did during that hour's time, he's unaware of. But he now knows that, okay, there was two that went up. There's one coming out. Maybe the second one came out as well. He's just kind of curious because he's thinking at this point now he's got it in his mind that, hey, there's a downed craft here. 100%. Like I said, he's thinking alien craft or Army Corps of Engineers and whatever. His mind's going 100 miles a minute. The truck goes by and he's crouched down, but he could hear talking, but it was loud talking. And the truck rolls by, and at this point, he's never going to forget this kind of conversation that he heard. It rolls by, the engine's loud, but the soldiers that are in this truck are talking amongst themselves. And what he hears, the first truck goes by, and he says that he couldn't see anyone in the back of the truck, but he knew that it was coming from the back of the truck because they were yelling to talk, not yelling like an argument. But I'm glad that's done. And then the driver, yeah, that was crazy. And you didn't even get out of the truck to release them. WTF was that? And it goes by, and he's like, what the hell? Release them. And it just, the truck just goes by like a normal, and he's like, release what? Wolves? Were they releasing wolves? Are they releasing some kind of endangered kind of animal to this area? I don't remember reading about anything in the any kind of news articles or anything of a release program. And why is the government, or military helping out with that? Usually it's, something much different. Wouldn't it be like the Department of Agriculture? And so he's confused. He gets out and he starts walking. And he's like, I must have missed that other truck. It must have already went by. And he's kind of midway in between the natural arch and the Caballo Mountain area. And he's trekking through. And now it's starting to get a little warmer. The sun is fully up. And he can hear the other truck coming. And he's like, oh, shit. And he's like, got to get off to the side now. And he jumps off to the side once again, but there's not as much kind of deadfall of the trees. There's not much more cover here. It's more open and it's more kind of red rockish. So he treks further off the road into, deeper into this land here, deeper into the Santa Fe National Park here. And as he's trekking in, he's like, well, maybe I should go where I was going and hike up in and around the Pouillet cliff dwellings, because that's what his day was going to be. Mind you, he's trying to find his Native American side, his cultural roots and stuff, and just to be more spiritual with nature and whatever. So he's a long way off because he's already spent quite a bit of time hiking in. And he hears the truck stop, so he's walking away, but he hears the truck stop and he kind of turns and he looks and he walks back a little ways because he's like, and he hears gunfire. He hears like rapid gunfire, quick bursts, 3-round bursts, and yelling, 3-round bursts, more yelling. And then he hears the truck continue to drive back towards where he was. These quick bursts really put him on edge. You don't see 2 military vehicles in this area hardly ever. He's never, and he's lived in Los Alamos all of his life. And 2, military grade weaponry being fired in burst mode, like 3 rounds, da-da-da, da-da-da. So he's now like, fuck, should I run away? And the truck, like, the first truck was going at a decent pace. This truck's hauling ass. This truck is literally, dust is kicked up. It's like a storm of sand and dust and dry earth blasting by him. And he can't make out the words. He can make out yelling. And this is different talking. This is yelling. This is like just crazy yelling. Boom, by. It goes, just barrels right past him. Now he's not on the road, but he's off and he's standing there and he's like, what in the hell? And curiosity gets the better of him because as he's standing there, he's like, what could they have shot? What were they releasing and what could they have shot at? And he's like, I gotta look into this. I gotta figure out what is going on here. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now, mind you, during all of this time, you on TikTok, on any other kind of Instagram, Twitter, whatever, you are seeing some crazy imagery of military vehicles being transported by trains. You're hearing a lot of terrifying news coming out of Italy. And I'll never forget when the pandemic hit. I have a subscriber that is in the military and was living in Italy with his wife. And I got an email one day and he was like, Jeff, there's some crazy shit going on here. And it hadn't hit America yet. It was kind of just starting to make its way. But he's like, people are, passing away in their apartments and there's nothing anyone can do. And I heard that it's coming stateside. Please be careful. And I'm like, wait, what? And I text or message him back, please, you be careful. You know, what are you talking about? And then no kidding, like a week later, it just, the world stops as we know it. I think, you know, there's amazing things that happen in generations. And my generation is 9/11 and the start of the pandemic. You know, those are the two crazy things that happened in my lifetime. Obviously, my parents are both still alive, so they went through a lot more with the civil rights, the Vietnam War, you know, and then what I just mentioned. But so now he's like, oh crap. He remembers seeing all of these military vehicles on transport. He's like, instantly in his mind, he's like, how bad is what's going on you know, like, maybe they brought sick people out here. Maybe they just, you know, released them and bop, 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 you know? Just for YouTube's value, I'm not saying it. And so he's now like shitting bricks. This imagery that he's getting in his mind is just like, holy shit, this is happening. And he proceeds to walk out into that way. And he's like, I gotta see. And he treks it out. And he sees where the trucks had kind of stopped. And, you know, there's still dust in the air. And he can smell gunpowder. He can smell the cordite. You know, that you once you smell it in your life, you never forget what gunfire smells like. And he's looking around and he's like, I don't see any people. He's like, I don't see any blood. And he keeps walking and he's looking and he sees the tracks of the truck. He sees soldier boots. He sees, you know, this and that. And then as he's walking a little more, he stops and he's like, what in the hell is this? And he sees these kind of four-fingered prints on the ground. And behind them are these very long kind of prints of a foot with 3 toes. So 4 fingers, 3 toes. You can see the difference in the design of the hand, design of the foot. And he's like, what in the hell? And there's, you know, 15 or 20 sets. And you can make out the different ones because they go, you know, kind of all out. And he's looking and he's like, what is this, you know? And for a brief second, he's like, they've lied to us. They lied to us. This mutates people. Like, they turn into monsters. And he starts to trek back. He's like, I'm out of here. He gets a little bit down the road and he hears this horrific, high-pitched shrill. And another sound right after that. It sounds just like a baby. Like this just loud, echoing, creepy baby sound, crying. And he turns and looks behind him, but he doesn't see anything. He just takes off running. Now, where he's at, he sort of looks, as he's running down the road, he's looking, and he's like, if I cut through, I'll be able to get to where my car is a lot faster than taking this route here. He's like, fuck it. And he starts to run through a non-trailed area that is, you know, the terrain is a little dicey, but not not too dicey. You've got dangerous wildlife there. You've got, some dangerous fauna and other kinds of plant life, rocks, just anything right at this point. If you run into and you're hurt, you're kind of screwed. And he just keeps going. And the next thing he hears is a chitter. And he said, remember those clackers that you got when you were kids, and it was like 3 hands that went. And he said the sound was like that, but a little more rhythmic. Like it was definitely coming out of, it wasn't any kind of noise other than something that was coming out of something's mouth. And he now, like, he's looking because it sounds like it's on him, and he just keeps running. He's not fast. He's at this point in his life, he's a little bit overweight. Not so much anymore. During this kind of evolution, his own, evolution of becoming who he is now, he'd lost a lot of weight. He quit smoking. He was dedicated to this kind of cause. I want to find my heritage. I want to, embrace nature. He stops because he's winded. And he hears that noise and he looks back. And what he sees is exactly what we know as crawlers. He sees 2 of them up on this kind of mound of rock, like a rock mound. Huge boulder. It's an odd shaped kind of boulder. And there's 2 of them. And he's looking, and they are not looking at him. They are dead center on him. And the look that they are giving him is, it's either food, it's either dangerous, he's either dangerous, he's either food, or he's a plaything. Because this look that they're giving him is nothing but predatory. And he just dead books it. Gone. He's running as fast and as hard as he can. And he hears the noise again. And he's like, holy shit, they're right on me. He turns, nothing. And he's probably 1.5 miles from his vehicle. And he hears that shriek again. And he stops and he looks. And there's one of these crawler creatures standing in the middle of the kind of trail that he's now made for himself. It's not in front of him, but it's behind him because of his running and, just, he's not paying attention. He's not dodging anything. He's just running straight. So as he's looking at this thing, he's measuring its size. And he is like, that's huge. Like, that's, it's a good distance away from him. But he can see that it is, a good 7.5 feet tall. Very slender. Very alien-like, and I do believe that these crawlers were created by the Greys or the reptilians, and I believe that how they were created was that there was genetic tests and genetic splicing and whatnot with either human or Grey and reptilian, all 3, to create these things. As kind of like a security or some sort of weapon of, keeping people away from the entrances of these deep underground military bases or deep underground military city or whatever you want to call them. And he's literally terrified because he's like, holy shit. Like, and for some reason, Bigfoot pops into his head. He's like, it's not a Bigfoot, but what is that? And it lets out this just loud, horrific kind of sound. It wasn't a roar. He said it was more like it wasn't a screech, but it was something that he has never heard before. He's tried to duplicate it himself, but he cannot. And it dropped to all fours, and it looked so odd, just like a human would look. You know, we would look very odd at all fours. But when it dropped to all fours, he literally is like, it's gonna come at me now. And it just, gone. Takes off in the opposite direction. He runs to his car, gets in his car. You know, he's a distance away from his car. He can't see his car from where he's at this point. But he's running that whole way, just thinking to himself, what did I just see? You know, that was not a Bigfoot. That was not, you know, what the hell was it? It was an alien? Was that an alien? Maybe there was a crash. And he gets in his car and just, his day's done. He's terrified. He doesn't want to be there. He gets home, he starts doing research, like types it in, strange bald-like creature. You know, it is your typical crawler. And instantly, the creepypasta, the rake, pops up. And he's got all of these bizarre-looking AI-generated photos and, you know, photoshopped pictures and whatever. And he's like, oh my God, that's what I saw. I saw the rake. Now, the rake is or resembles what we know as the crawler, but it is based on, it's a creepypasta name. It's not, it was created by a bunch of creepypasta authors. Tobias Wade uses it. A few other people use them. And, you know, it's an interesting kind of, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty creepy too. You know, the creepypasta lore of the rake. But it is what these crawlers are, it's just 10 times more terrifying. And he's doing all this and he's like, oh my God, that's what I saw. And he's now on YouTube and he's watching any video he can get. And a couple years go by and he hears JR and he hears, you know, his dad's experience and things that he has shared on this channel. And identical to what he saw. Now, the strange thing is where JR had his experience, it was in Gila. It was close to the Gila cliff dwellings. This is very close to the Puya cliff dwellings. Both were in a national park. Both were in New Mexico. And both were very, very chilling and terrifying. Junior's, or JR, he was in Gila hiking, and he is very, very fit. He, you know, hikes, does kind of rock climbing, and he's just an outdoors guy. And will stay and do. Now, one day he's up there and he sees is he hears a bunch of commotion. He hears growling. He hears kind of scuffling. He hears rocks getting battered around. He hears that screech. And he comes up this kind of curved trail and he looks. And this is just kind of open area of rock. He's on a mountain. And he sees, you know, some caves, some very small caves. And he sees what he now knows as a Dogman fighting for its life as these crawlers keep coming out of this little cave area. And once badly damaged, you know, it's just pounded into a mess. Now, when that happened, 2 more would come out. Not 1, 2. And they eventually, subdue and take out this Dogman. And they drag it back in. Not back in, but they drag it into this little tiny cave entrance in the Gila. And he runs, and he's out. He's, once again, very fit. He's very tall. He's like 6'3", just freaking very skinny, but super fast. He's running through to get back to the parking area, and he can hear these things using the trees above him, chittering and screeching. And he's so lucky that he got out, because he did. Robert tells me about, in the Gila, there are actual depictions or hieroglyphs of these crawler-like creatures in these caves where Native Americans lived for, thousands of years before we were here. There's an old mine out past Silver City, and apparently one night he had talked to the sheriff that Robert had known the sheriff, the sheriff, not the deputies, the sheriff. He knew the sheriff at the time, and he had told him about what his son happened. And he said, that's crazy because, check this out. And proceeds to tell him that there's a mine out that way. They're in their little guard shack. And they see this monstrous Dogman come running out of the opened area here, kind of desert-like area, comes out of the darkness, and it's carrying something. As it's running, it's running bipedally, but it's running tripedally, but it's holding something in it. What they thought it was a little kid. They thought it was a little kid because it looked so small. And they realized that, they got out and they got into their truck. They've got, long rifles. They are equipped to protect this area. They're like, holy shit. They shoot at it. It drops that thing, the crawler, and takes off running. And they see like a couple more of these things come out of the darkness, just like where that Dogman came out of. More come out. They jump on the Dogman. The Dogman gets away. But then the guys they're overwhelmed. They get back into the truck, drive back to the guard station. And the night ended well for them because they still had their lives. But they didn't go back to work the next day. Who would, right? So that's what Robert and JR had told and shared with us. Now, when Corey heard that, through his years of, kind of watching and reading anything he can, he's like, I gotta share my experience. And because it's such a strange, like I said, you've got Native American structures that are built into the mountains, 2 different places, 2 different state parks, same creatures. And he's like, I gotta get in touch with these guys. So I did. I sent Robert and his son JR an email and said, hey, this guy named Corey, and here's his last name. Feel free to check him out on Facebook or whatever, and give him a holler because he would really like to chat with you. Hopefully they do. But these things was the government releasing them? Probably. I really honestly believe that, and I said this to Laura Eisenhower when I interviewed her, and she just knows a lot of spiritual things, and things that her great grandfather and other relatives has been passed down through generation to generation. But I had said, she believes deeply in dumbs and the atrocities that occur, especially in Nightmare Hall in Dulce. But I said to her, do you think that's where crawlers come from? And she's like, what's a crawler? And I proceeded to tell her. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. Never heard of them. But yeah, that makes sense. Because they look like a reptilian creature, like a reptilian alien. They look like a cross between a gray. And they look pretty freaking human too. She's kind of interested in it a little bit, and I sent her a couple of my videos on these crawler creatures and what people have encountered. But absolutely insane that the coincidences of it just line up. And I deep dive into Corey before I gave Robert and his son JR the information. He's like, he is from Los Alamos, this is his last name, he's reaching out to you. I didn't give your guys' last name to him. Reach out to him if you want, because I think that you guys can fill in some blanks. So to me, it only makes sense that these creatures are genetically created by whatever to protect these deep underground bases or cities. And, it's interesting that the Native Americans in that region, Archuleta Mesa is up north of that area, northwest. I'm looking at my map, but they built these kind of apartment complexes, almost ancient Native American apartment complexes, best way to put it, high enough off the ground for a reason. To keep them on the ground, to keep the first ones safe. And there's lore, there's ancient lore and ancient hieroglyphs and depictions of these creatures on the walls. They take out dogmen in kind of a pack mentality. Protect the hive at all costs. I don't know. I really, truly believe that these creatures are. And hopefully Corey and JR can connect. But, unbelievably terrifying experience. And how do you recover from that? Well, you know how he did? The same way we do. By researching, by reaching out to different communities and to talking. And I think that's beneficial. So, with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. That is because of all of you, so thank you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.